Welcome to the Podcast Quadrant, a podcast dedicated to the Empyrean Series by Rebecca Yarros. We are right now covering the Fourth Wing book, and we are on chapter 20 today. But before we dive into chapter 20, hi, babe.
Hi.
Great to see you again.
I know, I'm so happy.
Out and about a month later.
Yes.
For those who don't know, you had a little surgical operation.
Surgical operation?
A little.
Or we're calling it little?
No, it was not little.
It was a major
surgery. But you're feeling better.
Yes.
I've made sure of that. I've been taking my duties very seriously.
You took very good care of me.
Good.
Thank you.
The record is now has reflected that I am a good husband. Took care of you.
I think they knew.
Okay, good.
They already knew.
So obviously that's why we were away, but now we're glad we're back.
Yes, about a month. It was exactly a month, I think, from our last episode. And this should be up, obviously we're recording Sunday night. It'll be up Monday. January, oh my gosh, I'm not okay. July 8th in the morning, like normal. On our normal posting schedule, and I think my voice should be fine, but I'll just give that
we're gonna find out
not a content warning, but as part of our warnings at the beginning of the episode, because the surgery I had was on my thyroid, so I have a scar on my throat now, and then some of the swelling and like recovery for that surgery.
It's a beautiful scar named Eloise.
Yes, I named her Eloise, and she's my BFF now. So anywho, it will impact you because if I talk a lot, and especially towards the end of the starts my throat sounds
sounding like a dragon. No big deal.
I get a little gravelly or a little like ahem. Got to clear my throat. Just sound a little funny. So if that happens, that's what's going on and why. But I'm overall doing good, and just more proof that I'm Violet Sorengale.
Of course.
Because she was a small cold girl. Right. With her illnesses and her POTS syndrome, and
who knows? Maybe in book 3, there's like a slash across Violet's throat from like a battle, and all of a sudden they're just like, "Oh, we should just remove that thyroid." You'll solve all your problems.
Sure. Okay. So I was, channeling our chronic illness girly while I was recovering. And I tried to think about Fourth Wing and dragons before I went under the anesthesia, because I really wanted to, daydream about dragons. But this time in this surgery, other surgeries I've had before, I dreamed.
Right.
But I think this was more sedation. So I didn't have any dreams. I woke up and that was the last thing I remembered. So didn't get that, but I was like, I am in the healer's quadrant.
Yes.
This is not a hospital. This is a healer's quadrant. And I'm just, got to get my strength back so I can train to stay on my dragon.
Of course.
Yeah.
Naturally.
So any other little life updates? I don't think so.
No, I mean, obviously in the summer we're a little more freer now that we're post-op, and hopefully we can do this more frequently while we still have time to.
Yes.
So for this episode specifically, we are covering chapter 20, and going after the chapter 20 summary, we will cover chapter 20 in all the context of Fourth Wing. So here is your spoiler kind of setting, if you will. If you have not read all of Fourth Wing after the summary, that would be the time for you to bounce out. Go read the rest of chapter Fourth Wing after the summary. If you have read all of Fourth Wing, you're good. Stay for the analysis that we're covering all of chapter 20. And then after that, we're going to cover chapter 20 and just all aspects of Iron Flame. So if you have not read all of Iron Flame, that would be your time to peace out.
Yes.
And then go finish.
And we give plenty of warnings. Don't worry. So in short, if you've read up to chapter 20, you're good through the summary. If you've read the whole book, you're good through the analysis. If you've read Iron Flame as well, you're good to the end of the episode.
Exactly.
Good job.
And then obviously we have a context warning just for in case you have little ears, little listeners around you or live. Just be fair warning that this book and series got some spicy scenes, some choice words and language. So if you don't want little ears listening to that, then come back another time and listen to us later. But other than that, I think that was it for our life updates.
Yes.
What you got for us,
the
babe?
Setting the scene segment.
Setting the scene.
Yes. Where
what's the vibe?
The vibe, where it's changed over the course of this podcast since we started, but we basically have just like said, you know, literally set the scene of what we're using to record, so you guys kind of know where to listen and how to listen and or watch, and any like technical things going on, because we've had our bumps in the road, tech issues wise and things like that. And at first we didn't have video or TikTok lives or anything like that, so it was just mics and things. And we would also
worded that is a side effect of the surgery. Just slip into an accent every now and then.
Yeah, we would also always say what we're cooking for dinner, but right now we're later tonight. We're heating up frozen pizzas so we can have a pizza and Game of Thrones night and watch House of Dragon release at 9. So no dinner cooking in the oven right now, but that's our plan tonight. We currently are recording audio for sure.
I hope so.
Obviously.
I hope so for sure.
We are trying to record the video podcast on my laptop. The camera is shady, literally. At best. It's a little fuzzy because it is an older MacBook. So TBD on if we will have video uploaded with this, but for sure the audio, because otherwise it's not a podcast. And then a new thing we're trying today is on our TikTok live. You guys, hello TikTok live. Started started the live a little bit before we recorded, so you guys could see a little behind the scenes, a little chit chat, and then the live recording of the podcast. And then we'll take some segment breaks in between, like the summary and stuff, to specifically answer anything, any comments, kind of go through that on TikTok live. So any theories or feedback or things like that, bring it. I will say though that I'm kind of monitoring it a little bit out of the corner of my eye, but otherwise I'm not going to be like super on top of it until those segment breaks. So I'll scroll back and catch up with those comments. But thank you guys for listening, and give us like friendly feedback and stuff like that on the live and how to do that better, because that's our kind of our first like foray. Is that the right word?
I have no idea.
A foray into things, like a new adventure. Okay.
Just say it's new adventure.
It's our first time doing, we're new at that. So give us helpful feedback, and we're happy you guys are here.
Yes.
So.
Absolutely. So, chapter 20 summary.
Without further ado.
Brought to you by yours truly.
Yes.
And we're going to get going. Okay.
Sorry, there was a dog hair on my mic.
Gross. It's better
Are you finally going to read this summary?
I'm finally ready when you're ready, my love.
I'm ready. Take it away, babe.
My mic was on and it started adding to my summary.
Oh, no.
So if I accidentally say, "Are you ready, my love?" in the middle of the summary, that came from you. Okay. Here we go. A quote from My Time as a Cadet, a memoir by General Augustine Malgren. Accusing a wing leader of wrongdoing is the most dangerous of all accusations. If you're right, then we failed as a quadrant to select the best wing leaders. If you're wrong, you're dead. That goes well.
Yeah.
The chapter begins the next morning from the end of chapter 19. The end of chapter 19. Everyone is in the courtyard in formation, hearing the death roll. These names are of no shock to Violet, as they are the names of the unbonded cadets that tried to kill her the night before in her sleep. But there are also two third-year riders also mentioned that were killed in an operation near the Braverick border. Xaden then approaches Dain, saying that there is going to be a change in his squad. Liam Murray is now in Violet's section. Liam is a first year, described as tall as Sawyer and built like Dane, with light blonde hair, blue eyes, and a rebellion relic starting at his wrist working its way up on his arm. Violet does not like this, knowing he's being put there to bodyguard Violet. Xaden says she does not need a bodyguard. Based off of last night, though, Xaden is saying she really does, because any threat to her is also a threat to himself. All the while, Fitzgibbons finishes his announcements and steps aside for Panchek to say something. Dane has now just noticed the bruises around Violet's neck and is staring at her, but Violet reassures him she's fine. Panchek announces that a breach in the codex has occurred and the problem will be dealt with here and now. Xaden now steps up and Violet knows it's about last night. Xaden explains what happened to the crowd and explains that he executed the would-be murderers and that the whole thing was orchestrated by a wing leader who had access to Violet's door. Xaden calls out Amber Mavis to answer for her crimes. Dain is in immediate denial and insists that she's innocent. Amber herself even calls out that she has not committed these crimes. But of course, Violet remembers seeing her flee from her bedroom once she woke up. Not believing Violet, Dain tries to reach out to Violet with his hands to see her most recent memories. Violet refuses because then Dain would know the secret about Andarna and stopping time. Dain shouts and orders her to. Then Xaden calls out to wing leaders for a quorum as dragons fly and circle around the citadel and courtyard, including Sigale and Tairn. Violet asks Tairn if he can see her memories and share them with corresponding dragons. He responds with yes, but never outside of a mating bond, as it is considered a violation according to Tairn. Violet asks him to share the memory with the others, and he agrees. As he does, the rest of the dragons now know the truth, and the courtyard goes silent as every bonded cadet now knows, even Dain, what happened last night. Violet chastises Dain for not believing her, especially when Xaden did. A unanimous decision has been made that Amber is guilty, and she will die here and now by dragonfire. Violet then knows what's happening and begs Tairn to spare her life and punish her in a different way, hoping for reconciliation, because her dragon will suffer as well. But Tairn says he isn't risking it. Tairn extends his head, scorches Amber where she stands. The chapter ends with Clyde mourning in an ear-shattering roar. End of chapter 20.
I love that you put Clyde.
Because I couldn't. I had
you
no
can
idea.
never pronounce Amber Mavis's
how
dragon.
to pronounce it based off the wording or spelling alone. So I went back to the audio to see how she pronounced it. I was like, Clyde. Oh, okay, that's easy. And then I had to put it in parentheses.
Really?
Yeah, I went
Claidh. Clyde.
Clyde.
Okay, I guess.
With a at the end.
Yeah.
So that was chapter 20. It's actually pretty short.
20. It is a short chapter.
Short chapter. Quick to the point. Much like Amber's trial.
Yes. Yes. What did they say earlier in the book? Dragons burn first and ask questions later.
Ask questions
right?
later, yeah.
So, Bip
to Amber.
Burn in peace to Amber.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really all I have to say right off the bat.
This episode reminded me of actually a Blacklist episode where there is a blacklister, I think in season 2 or something like that, that is called the Judge. And the judge doesn't really care about actual justice like proceedings. It's just based off of vibe, basically, and feel. And they're like, oh, all right, you're being charged of this crime, defend yourself. And the person defends themselves. And then the judge who's like an 80-year-old woman, will be like, 10 seconds later, I find you guilty. You're dead.
Oh, yeah.
So much like this, where Zane's like,
Well, it's not just, I mean, we talk about the quorum, which I don't know if you have notes about that, but I need a dictionary definition later on. But
Webster's dictionary defines quorum as?
I don't know yet.
Come on, that was your cue.
It's not just Xaden that orders her to be executed. Mm-hmm. It's a quorum of the wing leaders and the wing leaders' dragons.
Right.
Or all the dragons involved.
Xaden just specifically clarifies to wing leaders. He doesn't say wing leaders and dragons. He just says wing leaders that they need to assemble a quorum or to come to a quorum. So
a quorum is a collective noun.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't come to a quorum.
Right, I know, but I'm just going off of like how he had said it.
A quorum is a minimum number of members of a group necessary to constitute the group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's basically how I understood it too.
Sure. In a deliberate assembly, a quorum is necessary to conduct the business of that group. So almost like a smaller group.
Yeah, he says, wing leaders, we need a quorum. That's it.
Yeah. which, like, to make an official judgment.
Right.
Okay.
So that's what happened.
Yeah. So Bip Amber Mavis.
Add her to the death roll.
Yeah. All right. What notes you got?
I mean, I've got a bunch of notes that unfortunately have to do with Dain because Dane's being Dain yet again.
He is.
To me, this was, I feel like I've said this several times with the chapters even leading up to this, but Dain is just digging himself a deeper and deeper hole. And there was, a couple of chapters ago, we're talking about like how he's not believing her at all, and he's minimizing her when she literally bonds two dragons, and he's like, "Oh, you'll never make it. You're gonna die if you stay in here." And Violet's out here like, "Didn't I just bond the most powerful dragon?" And
like,
then a second one.
Excuse me, did you not just?
Where's your second dragon?
Yeah, sir? Like, oh, that's right. You have only one, like everyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
So just when you think he can't get worse, he does. And he then orders her to hand over her memories.
No, doesn't even order her. It's just like, I'm going to touch your face and read your memories now.
Right. Well, I mean, he does order. But he like pulls out the like wing leader card to like order her and commands her to like let me see those memories. And just like, dude, what are you doing? When
I read Fourth Wing the first time, I distinctly remember this was finally my first big, like, oh no moment for Dain. Because, and everyone has this experience, reading Fourth Wing. Yeah. And I've even seen some videos or TikToks where people are like, talking about how they like Dain and they're shipping Violet and Dain together. And then you'll come back like, oh no, hun, like, how did that age? How did that go? And that's a common thing. And that happens in, very famously in ACOTAR too, where like the love interest in the first book, you end up like hating him later on. And so people were like getting tattoos of him and you're like, oh no, honey, you should have finished the series to make sure that he doesn't turn into a weirdo. But up until this point, I didn't realize how much I didn't like Dain in the first read through, because she sets him up to be
almost a savior. Like in the very first like couple chapters, no, like that's not what I was gonna say. Well, I was gonna say Violet kind of sets up Dain to be kind of like a savior, because in the beginning of Fourth Wing, Violet's sister was like, "Fine, Dain Atos," and that's always the classic like, "Oh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Yeah, but they've set Dain up to be like a hero, to be the savior, because he's gonna be the one person for sure to not kill Violet. In Basgiath.
Like tries to lull you into a sense of like safety with him.
What were you gonna say? Sorry,
I don't remember because you interrupted me, but it's fine. I love you. Setting him up to be like classic boy next door childhood love interest. And then he's just pulled out from under you. Like, no, we're not going for that. We don't like him, actually.
No.
But it takes you a little while on a first read. But then knowing what you know out of the whole book, when you reread it, you see the red flags early on.
Very early on.
And that first read, you miss it. So I noted that this was my first big, oh no moment for Dain in my first reading. And this was when I finally got an ick about him, was when he was going to forcefully read Violet's memory.
I remember reading even the first time and hearing after the kissing scene after threshing. And it was more of like a, oh no.
Like the disappointed kiss. Right. Yeah, that's true. Well, that's where you maybe are like, oh, well, maybe they just have like a friends to lovers thing, or they just have some stuff to work out, or I don't know. You still at that point might hold out hope, but nope.
Even before that, I didn't want it to happen. I did not, as you would say, or people would say, ship them. I was not shipping Dain and Violet even well before the threshing kiss. So when that was happening, I was like, oh no. And then literally like 2 sentences later, Violet was like, this is filled with disappointment. I was like, oh thank God.
You're like, oh thank God. We were all
thinking Then we get to this scene or this chapter.
Right.
And I remember like being like angry for Violet. Like more like, don't you fucking touch her.
Yeah. Like defensive of Violet.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my thought. But more, unfortunately, about Dain. I wrote down specific about that Dain can't deal with not being in control or in the know. Because and I thought that this was interesting because with his, that goes along with his signet. And we know what his signet is be able to read past memories and everything. So for Dain, that attitude very well matches up with his signet. It's obviously that correlation of like, what does the writer need and who he is at his core personality along with the bond. So it just kind of shows you more about who Dain is at his core, not necessarily just the situation of like, Amber, who is a love interest, if you want to call it that, for Dain,
right?
And he, her name's being thrown into bad company or is being thrown under the bus, and he like wants to defend her, but he doesn't know everything. So he at his core is like, I need to know every single detail.
Yeah,
I need to be in control, like all that sort of thing. That shows him like at his core. In my mind, like that's how I read it, at least this part of it, because he flips out. This is not him being like protective of Violet at all. This is like, no, Violet, you're wrong.
You're in the wrong.
You're lying, and you're saying all these things. I don't know. Let me see what happened because I need to know. This is very Dain like trying to be in control. Very
okay. Yeah, I see that.
And I think that was just I think for me also when I reread it, that connected the dots of like that's why he has a signet.
That's why he has that specific power. Like Violet was really weak, so she got a really powerful like electricity lightning thing to like balance out what her weakness was, which was literally weakness.
Right.
So you're saying that like clicked for you for Dain in that chapter. Yeah.
And very just the two opposites of Dain and Xaden, of course.
Oh yeah.
It's crazy.
Always pitting them together.
Always pitting them together. And Xaden is kind of like that same way where he, Violet even calls, says about Xaden in fourth way of like, I've never seen him look like he's not in control. Like he's always in control. But it's not like in a fistful way like Dain is now.
Xaden is
like,
always in control.
Right. Violet
I think like
that.
of himself.
Of himself, like of the situation. He's always in control of a situation. Even when Violet was about to die, he was in control once he got there, obviously.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
But I wrote this down. He's calm, cool, and collective.
Yes, he's like in control of his stuff. He's not particularly like emotional, and he doesn't like let on a lot outwardly. Like he doesn't get caught off guard.
Where versus Dain is demandful, shouting, and ordering.
Yeah, that contrast.
Right.
Yeah. So, and like we always say, you want to do it or you want me to do it?
If he says he's an alpha,
he's a beta.
Always a good
Always.
And then last thing about Dain, because I want to move on.
Good.
Last thing
I'm tired of his name.
Him not believing Violet.
Ugh.
That was hard.
Gets you.
Gets you. So then I thought about it more of like, why is he not believing? Because to Violet's point, I'm your oldest, longest, closest friend at that point. Out of everybody in Basgiath, you should believe me first. So why is he refusing to believe that? Because I believe this might also go down to who Dain is at his core, is that he refuses to believe in a world where rules are ever broken. That rules are ran the way they should be, and that if you do break the rules, you are a criminal.
Yeah.
And that sort of deal. And then he reflects that upon Amber, who, if she's good enough for Dain, that means she follows all the rules. So she would never break a rule, and Violet must be lying because the rules are above Violet and all that sort of deal. So Dain, like at his core, needs to be in control because of the rules that are in place.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my little pinpoint.
I always thought he's very like black and white and no room for like gray area or maybes or it depends or things like that of maybe if the rule or the codex, even though it's a law or the guidelines they live by, what if the rule is wrong or unjust? But he's so by the book that he can't ever see that kind of gray area or like almost like when people tell like little white lies, like, it's not illegal, but it's not good, but it's not, that gray area, like I said. So, and I'm assuming Well, I don't know, because I was looking at the epigraph again because it talks about kind of the rules a little bit, but it's not the codex.
It's completely a personal journal diary.
Memoir. But it's not like his personal journal. It's a memoir, so I'm assuming it's like a book, and who would have access to that or who would know it? Do you think it's like required reading for everyone to read that? So like Dain, Violet, Xaden, Amber, all of them have read this, or is it not something they would have read? I guess that's what I would always try and figure out with the epigraph at the beginning of the chapters. But I'm assuming if he has this thought and he's been through the writer's quadrant, it might be like a general sentiment among everyone in the writer's quadrant, where accusing the wing leader of wrongdoing is like powerful accusation. Like, you don't just say that lightly. And if you're wrong, then like either the wing leader is going to die because they were actually in the wrong, or you're going to die because you brought these false accusations, and that is how seriously we take it.
Right.
So I'm assuming he's not the only one that thinks this. That's like common knowledge of all writers. Yeah? You think that's fair to say? So then for Dain to think, I know that, Violet knows that. So my assumption is Violet knows the seriousness of a false accusation and she's still going to do it. So what are you saying, Dain?
Right.
That's what you're saying. Like literally assuming the worst in her intentions and couldn't even like think. And I wonder if it was that, or we know that he had like a thing for Amber Mavis and like they were like friends with benefits or something in the previous year. So then I think it's a like not reverse psychology, but it's something like he chose her as a love interest. So if she is bad, what does that say about Dain? And Dain cannot handle that.
No.
He's like, oh, I don't want to think that the person I like or have a thing for is a rule breaker, because then he would just crumble. So I think that's part of it too, is not so much, oh, I'm protecting Amber, or I believe the good in Amber. He's doing it to protect himself, because he's like, if someone that I slept with is doing things against the rules, then what does that say about me? And he really is super like clinging so tightly to his own like perfection and like life. Not life, a self-image of him and his how he lives his life.
For sure.
So I think that is part of it too. And that's really the only thing we know about him and Amber, right? What's
just those like stories?
Yeah, because she's come up a little before, but I don't remember
with the gauntlet.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, and again, he was like, "Well, you kind of did."
Yeah.
Where it's not like. This is like a history lesson. Did you learn this in like history or government classes in high school, where they were like, there's certain, I'm going to get the words wrong or the terminology wrong, but the concept is there. Okay. I can Google the terminology. The concept's important.
Okay.
Where if it's not distinctly said you can't do it, you can do it. In like the Constitution. Okay. There's people that interpret it that way. And then there's people that interpret the Constitution as you can only do what it says you can do. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like strict versus loose interpretation, but I know there's specific words. Yeah. So I think
maybe they know.
Yeah, if you know what I'm looking for. So I think Dain's like, the Codex didn't say you couldn't, but it didn't say you could, therefore you were wrong. Where Xaden and Violet and all of them were like, no one gave us a rule that she couldn't do it, so
I didn't hear a no.
Like, tell me what page, right? Like, oh, show me the page in the Codex that says I can't do that. So there he is again, like assuming the worst, or like, wouldn't you want your best friend, alleged best friend in the whole world, to be successful? And I think you would like kind of bend the rules a little bit. Yeah. I don't know.
Just a little bit.
Do you have anything else about Dain? Because I'm tired of his face.
There at this point in Fourth Wing, there was no coming back for Dain.
No.
There was no coming back.
It's all downhill from here.
All downhill from here. he's set himself now apart to not even be in the trustworthiness for Violet.
Yeah.
This is like, no, now I'm going to actively stay away from you. Not that I was like, before maybe it was awkward, or I was like, oh God, I don't have the energy for you today, Dane, sort of attitude. Right. But now it's like, no, I'm gonna, plan my day to not see you.
Yeah.
So this was bad for sure. But no, I'm done with Dane. I'm sick of his face.
Wait, I'm sorry. I have one more thing. Oh. That was my bad. My bad. At this point, he doesn't read her memory.
In this chapter?
Right.
No, he does not.
So at this point, at the end of chapter 20, he doesn't know what happened in her room.
He knows what happened in her room, but he does not see the flight field.
Meaning he knows she stopped time?
No.
So that's what I'm saying. Doesn't know. He just knows. Or are we assuming...
I think just the parts about where, like, the necessary information.
The necessary, like...
What was there and what was attempting to be happening.
I guess this was my clarification that I couldn't find, was when...
I got you.
When Tairn shares his memory with the other dragons, does that include... I don't think it would, because...
So on page 246, Violet is speaking to Tairn, saying, quote, Xaden's up there fighting because I told him it was her, meaning Amber.
Yeah, like he trusts me.
Right. And gods, I admire him for it. I take a deep breath. Only what they need to see. That's it. Like, right. So I'm assuming, like, because obviously Tairn knows, because Tairn was going to be like, no one can know about Andarna. So I'm sure Tairn can just be like, look, dragons, here is who was in the room, here's what they were doing.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right, not the stopping time part, because, well...
Because that's going to get out to everybody else, too.
Right, we don't want the other people to know that.
Right.
But can the other dragons know it and they don't tell the people? Is that dangerous?
That's what we don't know. That's what we don't know. We still don't know how much information dragons share with each other.
Well, right. But I don't think we know. So it was more like a what if question, where when Tairn shares the memory of what happened, he's like, I trust these other dragons to keep that information safe, because maybe they already know that that's something Andarna can do, because I don't think Tairn was particularly shocked.
It's not unknown that dragons still keep secrets from their humans. We see that in Fourth Wing, where Tairn knows everything that's going on with
Xaden.
Xaden. So like that's not so I think it's definitely worth the concept and the idea and the thought that the other dragons will keep the secret too. But can you really trust all the dragons?
Right. That was my other question.
There are some scary
Is it only the dragons of the wing leaders?
Right.
That knew this, or is it every dragon of every rider?
Well, then later down in this chapter, when the courtyard is like in chaos because Amber is being, about to be executed,
right?
And then, so I'll keep reading. 246 quote: Tairn shuffs every dragon besides the Gale stiffens on the wall. Every dragon. So that means we've seen about how many dragons? We saw 6 dragons.
So just the wing leaders.
Maybe just the wing leaders. But what was weird is this. Sigil stiffens on the wall, even Amber's. The riders are quick to follow. So the riders of those dragons. Silence, filling the courtyard. And I know they know. That spineless wretch, Rhiannon, sees her hands squeezing mine even tighter. That would imply that Rhiannon saw it and she's not a wing leader.
Right. So it could be literally all the dragons, including non-wing leader bonded, or based on the reaction of the wing leaders, that tells everyone else in the courtyard, oh shit, it's true.
Maybe.
It could. And we don't have Rhiannon. It could be either way.
We don't have Rhiannon's point of view. We just hear what she says, so that's hard to tell. So how I read it both times, first and second time, was that everyone in the courtyard got this like blurred vision from their dragons.
And that's like a clarification I don't have.
We're playing telephone, basically. Like
kind of, yeah. I saw it, so Tairn saw it, so Tairn showed these dragons, and these dragons showed their riders.
Right.
And I know sometimes on previous episodes there's been things where like it's easily look upable in the episode, and that's been like a comment we've gotten is like, just look it up. I'm like,
we don't want to spend the entire episode on this.
Right. But I mean, or sometimes like in this case, I don't think it clarifies. You could read it either way. And so it's not like there's a clear answer. And sometimes that happens. And that's part of the fun of books like this, with like a lot of it's not a mystery book, but a lot of theories and a lot of like shocking things.
There's a lot of
we don't know
loose ends.
And it doesn't necessarily like, it's not going to change the outcome or the understanding of the book. It's just like an interesting thing to think about, you know? So I'm like, don't come for me that I posed a question that doesn't have an answer. Right. That's part of the fun of books like this and like fantasy books in general.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I want to take a second and look at our comments.
So the live comments?
Yeah.
All right, live. What you got?
Let's see. There's not a ton. There were some likes.
Thanks for the likes, y'all.
Thanks. 3 people in there. I appreciate every single one of you. Just people joining.
This is where you comment, guys.
And some hearts early on, and when we mentioned that and things like that. I actually don't know totally what I'm doing. But
this is our first TikTok live. We're learning as we go. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, I think it's spam. So we're doing great. Someone, or it could be a joke. I don't know. But we're not going to give them airtime.
Okay.
Just not
moving right along.
Moving right along. And then a message from TikTok telling me to get more likes to attract more viewers. Okay, that's the goal. So I'm trying.
That's what we're trying to do. For back.
Let's see. And if you guys, I don't know if you were already following me, so you guys just saw that I went live on here, or if it just came up on your For You page or something like that. But if you're a Fourth Wing fantasy, romantasy, book talk fan, and you have friends that also are into the same thing, then share the live if you think they would also like it, or just the episode on Spotify and Apple Podcasts when it comes out. Because if you like it, odds are some of your book talk friends would like it too. Nate Ganglehoff joined. You sneaky sneak. Let's see. And a lot of these like features and stuff like that, we can't necessarily do yet because you have to have had like so much history and so much time on live and so many likes on live like that to access some of them. Did you just try and do something?
No, we're good.
Oh, you just had like a suspicious face back there.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Oh, those are filters. We don't need any filters or anything.
Ugh.
Okay. So we will
come on, TikTok.
Continue on.
Continue on?
No, I'm just excited there's even people there.
Hi, y'all. You can
all
ask
4 of you. I love
questions,
each and every one of you.
Ask questions. Throw out your theories.
Okay.
Even if they're questions about our own dreams.
The iPad back so I can see my other notes.
For sure.
Okay.
Bethany, do you want to be a star on the TikTok show?
Up, puppy. Okay. Oh, no. Your ear is inside out, my friend. The world is... I can't reach you.
He's like,
I can't
no.
reach him. Okay. It's okay.
The world will stop for 20 minutes.
All right.
It's all good, though.
I think we're moving on about Dain, correct? We're done.
Oh, please.
We're done here.
Please. Yeah,
okay.
we're done with Dain.
Okay.
All right. Your turn. Unfortunately, I brought up Dain. So what note do you have?
Yes. Well, I really liked the visualizing the scene of this one. And we listeners of the podcast will know that my brain goes fuzzy and I just black out whenever I read like an action or battle or fight scene. It's just like blah, 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 so-and-so won. Okay, great. Like that's all I got. I cannot picture sparring. I can't picture the gauntlet.
Flight maneuvers. It
just
bank
blacks
left
out.
and then ascended right and did a tilt-the-whirl.
No, none of that is clear to me. This kind of scene in the courtyard here with Amber on trial, very clear.
Very clear.
And I think I've watched too much TV because I can picture
like courtroom drama on TV.
No, just like scenes or I don't know, different types of filming and different types of movies and things. So you're like, oh, that would be cool if they do something like this to show this scene. Like, I'm very excited to see this one in the movie or mini series version. And interesting to see how they're going to do memories.
Yeah.
In general.
Like little flashbacks.
You know, because right now I'm picturing a little bit like That's So Raven, where she like stares off into the distance and has this like shocked face with big open eyes, and then we get like a cartoon graphic zoom out to the future or the past. So I don't think it's going to be that, but right now in my head that's what I envision it. But the realization that all the other squad leaders had once they're dragons, like seeing that, you almost don't even need to see what the memory was. If the actors can act it on their face good enough, then okay, I don't need to see the actual memory because I already understand that it just confirmed the story. And so you could do that, and I think of a lot of really cool ways visually. So I just was excited for that particular thing. And of course there's going to be changes from like, oh, the book was better. In the book, this happened. And in the show, this happened. But I think core things have to stay the same, obviously. Yeah. There's no way that they can't have this scene.
No, I mean? Definitely not.
Yeah.
And no, this is one of the more crucial times because it's such a character development type of scene, especially character relationships between Violet and Dain.
And Xaden.
And
the reorganization, like turning point of
and the introduction
loyalties
of
and things.
Liam.
I know, that's my next note.
Let's
I said enter Liam.
Enter Liam. Now obviously everybody in here still has ended.
Yes, we're currently in the entire hold on. I'm giving a spoiler check. We're currently in spoiler territory for all of Fourth Wing. Hopefully you check out if you need to.
Right. And now let's give like a 5-second, moment of silence.
Why? Why do we need to do that now? I don't want to get pre-sad.
Pre-sad. It's just so hard.
Yeah.
But Liam, let's talk about him.
I don't have anything except
like what was description in the notes.
He just was getting
he was there
introduced and moved to bodyguard her. That's it. That's all I got.
What is Liam's signet? I just remember because it's obviously they go through his physical description and everything. I know we'll learn it later, but I just had to guess here. Hi, Joe.
It's future sight, right?
Future sight, or
continue. I will confirm that.
Not future sight, but something more like not like as in he can see in the future, but he can see within a far distance. Asia.
Liam, Fourth Wing signet.
Well, that's where I was going. I just don't remember what his signet was, but anyway.
Signet.
Yeah.
Far sight.
Far sight, not future sight.
Oh, my bad.
You silly goose.
Okay. Far sight allows him to see very far in the distance as pupils dilate when he uses a signet. It also allows him to see things that others can't, like see through fog. Demonstrated when he uses his farsight signet to see the venom in the fog near the end of Fourth Wing. But he has that ability. But at the end of Fourth Wing in their battle, he wields ice.
Oh.
Which goes along with my theory that Rebellion kids have another power. Like a secondary one. Or that was just some really, really strong lesser magic.
Right.
I don't know. Some people use those magical pens and some people wield ice, I guess. I don't know. But I don't think we're categorizing that as a lesser magic. Yeah, on the wiki for Liam, when it says lesser magic, it doesn't say anything specific. Just it tells you what lesser magic is, including powering ink pens. I'm telling you guys, there's something about these gosh dang ink pens.
Facepalm.
Between like chapter 1 and like 10 or 11, they are mentioned in every single chapter. Mm-hmm. Every single chapter. And I made sure I brought it up in every single podcast episode because I was so sure that something was going to happen with these, because otherwise, why mention it? Yep. It's so non-important unless it's going to be important. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like, Rebecca, I have questions, Rebecca. What's up with these dang pens? Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. Anything else about Liam? We know he has a dad, obviously, mm-hmm. and a sister.
Yes.
Obviously, younger. Yeah. But at this point, we don't know anything else about that. His relationship to Xaden, mm-hmm. and like why he would have been the one Xaden chose to move not quadrants, squads? Wings.
He moved, yeah, everything.
That organization, I need the chart and I don't have that handy. To have him move to Violet to protect her, why do you think it was Liam and not mm-hmm. Garrick or Bodhi? Well, one of those was already in her.
Well, Garrick and Bodhi are Xaden's year. They're third years. And he mm-hmm. can't afford to have them bodyguarding Violet because he needs them for the weapon runs.
Okay, so you
would
think
be my
that's
theory.
Why?
Huh?
I was like, you think that's why?
I think that's why. So the next best option is like, okay, who is a rebellion that I would trust with basically my own life that is her year?
Okay.
Because Imogen's older, so we can't do that. Right. Imogen's doing her own thing. I'm sure there are other ones, maybe. I just can't remember on top of my head.
That are first years?
That are first years.
Okay.
Because everybody else, like, like Jack, who we hate, that he's not part of that. He's not a rebellion relic. And then you have Riddick, Sawyer, Ree, not from the Tyrus Rebellion, I don't think. So they're not going to have rebellion relics. So it's everybody that, would be a first year rebellion relic would be the ones that Xaden trusts the most. And then he, mm-hmm. in the chapter, goes on further of like, he is tall and strong. He was the fastest in the gauntlet. And I think I could be wrong with this.
He literally gets some, not an award, but he gets recognized and people say he's like the strongest person in first year. Mm-hmm. So, what is he? Strongest cadet in Violet's year. Mm-hmm. He runs across the parapet and finishes the gauntlet with the fastest time.
He's statistically the strongest first year in the quadrant, fastest up time on the gauntlet.
Yeah.
And hasn't lost a single challenge.
Yeah, like sparring challenge.
And hasn't. I doubted myself, but I wasn't sure. I thought he had bonded a strong dragon, but I didn't know if that was for sure, and he does. Xaden actually says he's bonded an exceptionally strong red dagger
mm-hmm.
tail,
yeah.
which is Liam's dragon.
Oh, dang.
Is it Day?
I just had it. Yes.
That's right.
Deigh, Day.
Day.
Red, you said dagger tail?
Dagger tail.
Yep.
Yep. And he's all yours, Atos. That's what Xaden says. And then later on, Dane's like, he says, quote, fucking mated dragons. Because he gets Xaden gets whatever he wants because of that.
Yeah.
And so obviously that's not a like secret about like who mated dragons are and like the special privileges that happen because of mated dragons. But still, it was kind of funny.
At this point, I'll come back to more kind of background on Liam.
Okay.
But somewhere in your summary, you mentioned how Xaden is like, we need to protect Violet because if Violet goes, her dragon goes, my dragon goes, I go. I
said it along the sorts that Violet needs to be protected because any threat to Violet is a threat to Xaden himself.
Yeah.
That's what he says in the chapter.
I know.
Okay.
I know that. I'm just saying that is mentioned and brought up in this chapter again. And at what point do you think it turns from him protecting himself for the sake of himself to him protecting Violet? for the sake of Violet because he likes her.
Because he's in love with her.
He wants to kiss her.
I think that page is starting to turn for Xaden. I think it was starting to turn when he is saving her and when he is helping her with her wounds and also like helping her go through the tunnel. This one. In the previous chapter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Or in this whole incident of the cadets attacking her in her room. Okay. I didn't have like a specific answer. I was just thinking the tides are starting to change.
They are.
Or do you think it's always been because he likes her?
I think the sense of attraction has always been there.
But the like self-preservation I think was stronger than the attraction.
Correct.
At first. And then he was like, oh, I don't just want to protect her anymore because it would save me, but because I also like her. So I think we're starting to get that turn. And we were going back on why specifically Liam.
Yeah.
And Liam is we would say a foster brother to
That's right.
Xaden.
That's right.
So they have that connection, but I guess when they introduce that or give that background, I thought that meant like they were the same age, but they're not.
Liam
and Xaden. No. Liam's not a repeat first year.
Liam? No. Liam's not a repeat first
Who's
year.
Sawyer. Sawyer. Thank you. Okay. So when they say foster siblings, truly like brothers, not like, I don't know why in my head I just thought they would have been the same age. Anywho, gotcha. So obviously both parents were killed in rebellion, Liam's parents and Xaden's parents, and then fostered by the same family, which was like a noble family. Right, so they had that like unique relationship there. They were fostered by Duke Lyndall after their parents' executions. Yeah. So they had that connection, where I don't think he has that with Garrick and Bodhi.
No, well, he has a Bodhi or Garrick are blood relatives.
Who's the cousin?
Bodhi.
Okay.
Bodhi's a blood relative, like first cousin to Xaden.
Bodhi. And Garrick is just Xaden's good friend.
I believe so.
All obviously rebels.
Yes.
Rebels kids. But that's kind of the little like spider web of connections before them. Okay. Between them. Okay.
Solid.
Yep. Anything else about Liam?
No. We now get to see a lot more of him though. He's now entered the chat. So he's here. All right. I want to talk about the seeing and sharing memories because a couple chapters ago, we made a big deal of it. I made a big deal out of it, and now it's here again. And the first time, I'll be honest, somehow it blew right over my head. Either that, or I just meant. Or my brain maybe just thought when Violet says to Tairn, like, hey, can you still see my memories? I thought that was just them weird way of saying, hey, do you remember what happened last night? Like, do you remember, like, what happened? Like, I thought it was just, like, a weird film to say. But this comes out again where he says that you're seeing memories and now we're going to be sharing memories. This is part of, like, this secretive, specific dragon power. That dragons have these powers. And then we've talked about how in the previous chapter too, where Tairn is saying, oh yeah, as Feathertails, you have these special powers, and then as you mature and grow up, you lose those powers. Most dragons lose those powers. But obviously when you say most, it doesn't mean all, which could then mean that Tairn still has some special powers later on. We don't know. But that hasn't been revealed yet.
Oh, you're saying like this memory thing, you're thinking it's a specific power of Tairn's that he never lost.
Right, when he was a Feathertail, when he matured. And because when we're talking about Andarna and how she is able to stop time in Fourth Wing, and they're expecting like, oh yeah, like no dragon has that power, but a Feathertail has this power, and most likely Andarna will lose it when she matures.
Right.
but what if she doesn't? That's just a thing that is just crazy. But anyway, going back to seeing and sharing memories, that's still such a weird concept. But now it's out there. It's there. It's been there all along. And now I don't know how I missed it. And it baffles me. I'm like, how did I miss that? Like the first time. And now I don't know. Those are my thoughts, or some of my thoughts. But do you remember what I'm talking about? Like when we went a couple chapters ago, where I was like, Xaden says, "I've seen your memories, Silver One," and we were all like, "What does that mean?" And now we've been on the lookout for it, and now it's more
specific,
here more often.
Power that Tairn has that other dragons don't have.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, because if it was a common thing, like if all dragons could do it, then.
But it seems like they all can because he shared his memory with all of them.
That doesn't mean that all dragons can specifically see their own riders' memories and like share them. I think this is because if that were to happen, maybe Sigil could have done it, and maybe like other dragons could have done it at some point.
Okay.
Because also, like let's take for instance Clyde, Amber's dragon. Amber was there at this scene, so in that theory, Clyde could see Amber's memories. Clyde could share the memories with the dragons, if that were true. If all dragons could do that. But I don't think they can. I think it's very specific to Tairn.
Okay.
That's just my thought. But now it's another reoccurring thing that I've now clocked again.
Yeah.
That's like, okay.
I guess the way that it's presented is just so like, this is how it's done. Mm-hmm. This is a normal thing. It didn't like even like jump the radar for me of this is a specific special power or something. So honestly, to me, it's kind of like a nothing burger of like, oh, that's just how it is. It might be something. I'm just saying. Okay.
Call my theory a big
Don't
burger.
Be weird. I'm saying for me, when I read it, it didn't even come across my desk that it was a thing, is what I was saying. But it could be, to your theory or your idea, it could be just something hiding in plain sight. But the way that it's not like a big reveal or like a gotcha moment or like an aha something, I don't feel like there's anything there. But it could just be a hiding in plain sight thing. You see what I'm saying?
I do. I was more going off of like what these could imply.
Can I just see your phone a second?
Sure.
Continue.
I was just saying of like what these could imply, like what this could imply, that Tairn has a specific power, which also could mean other dragons could have very specific power as well. That's all I meant.
Okay. No, I was just reading on the live, but I was reading it from your thing that someone said our mics aren't working, but
our live phone isn't connected to the mics.
Yeah, the live phone's not connected to the mics, but can you not hear anything at all?
That would be bad. Maybe that's why no one's commenting.
Nope. Yeah. So I see the
our mics are connected to computer for
the podcast audio, where TikTok live audio is just picking up from my phone. So it may not be the best audio, or certainly not like mic quality.
And we don't want to shout.
But thank you.
But
thank you. That could be very helpful.
Right. That's all I had about that specific note, but just the fact that Tairn specifically can see Violet's memories, can share them with the group, like a group picture or video. I think with the implications that could carry is also massive, along with the precedent that other dragons that either we know of or don't know of can have that same possibility as well. So that's all I had for that. Did you want to add on to anything, or we want to go on to your next note?
The only other thing I had as a note was, did Xaden read her at any point in this? Which we usually can tell by she gets like spine tingles or scalp tingles. But I don't think that happened at any point in this.
No.
So.
Yep.
That's all I got.
That's all I got. Do you want to take another TikTok break, or what are you doing?
Well, I was just going on it as your view to see if you could just.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Share it and see what other people have, but another spam thing. I'm guessing, I don't know. He wants to contact us about our Cards Extended warrants. Literally. So if that's
we ride dragons, sir, so we don't have an extended warranty.
If that's a spam, that's a new scam that I haven't heard yet on TikTok. And
no, thank you.
I regret giving you airtime. So moving on.
But for the laughter, I like doing it. So.
I will say I don't have a lot of notes on this chapter because
it's a short chapter.
It's a short chapter. A lot of my brain power has been going to Rebecca's.
That's fair.
Updates and Rebecca, her posts on social media teasing a new reveal or release or
that
update.
Happened like an hour ago too from this recording.
Yeah. So it's Sunday. We already said the date, but it's Sunday, and she just posted to stay tuned tomorrow, Monday morning, or they didn't say a time, but just tomorrow on today.com for an update about the Empyrean Series. No, not about Onyx Storm, just about the Empyrean Series. So a lot of my brain power has been going to that and her different profile pictures, which we normally have a segment in the beginning of the episode called Rebecca Watch, which is about things she's posted or said or interviews since the last episode and updates like that. But I didn't do it because to do it, I'm going to have to do spoilers, and I want to do an entire little mini bonus episode right after this about all of that. So I will apologize because I normally have more notes and more things, but all of my brain power has been going to that. So
it's all good. So then before we go into Iron Flame spoilers, let's give our wonderful audience their idea of what to do for social media and likes and comments.
So we're about to get to our Empyrean Series spoilers through Iron Flame.
All of Iron Flame.
Right. So before we do that, though, because I know some of you guys might be leaving because you don't want that spoiled. But thank you for sticking with us this far, and you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Podcast Quadrant. We both have personal Instagrams, and I have Abby Podcast Quadrant TikTok that we're doing the lives on. All of those will be linked in the show notes, as well as any articles or theories that we can cite and reference. We link that in the show notes as well. And we are on podcast, Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts, and a YouTube channel, all under Podcast Quadrant name.
So rate, review, comment,
share,
follow, share, subscribe.
All the things.
All the things.
Yes. And let us know any questions, theories you have, ideas you want us to talk about, ideas for bonus episodes, anything like that. I pretty regularly check all of those areas. So you can put it in a review on the podcast or a direct message or a comment, whatever, and we'll see it and add it to the show if we can. So this is your spoiler warning for Iron Flame.
Iron Flame spoilers.
If you haven't read all the way through Iron Flame, you should leave.
You have 5 seconds.
Okay, bye. Love you, bye. Okay, you're good.
Bye. Okay, they're gone.
What you got?
Okay, so Iron Flame spoilers.
Yeah.
I really just kind of quickly went through any other times that either memories or maybe hallucinations or something that happened that had to do with that concept, if Tairn could be involved with that. The only one that came to mind kind of was Liam. And that it's not even a memory. It's more of Violet hallucinating in the dungeon, and because she's being tortured or whatever, and Liam comes in front of her in Iron Flame.
And you think that's Tairn's doing?
I don't know if that's Tairn's doing
we know it's for sure not, because she has that potion or whatever.
Oh, that's right. See, I totally lost that. Okay.
I can tell you the theories that are circling out there of how that it came about.
Yeah, I know another theory about that, which we could dive into, because there's lots of theories out there. One of them is that I've heard, not from you, but what I've heard is that it has to do with Violet's second signet.
Oh.
That she's able to talk to dead people, talk to people from the past.
Okay.
And she hasn't quite tapped in yet.
But wouldn't that require channeling from a dragon, which would be blocked out?
Right. That's true. There was one time, and I don't remember if it was during that scene in Iron Flame where they fake taking the potion and they're still able to talk to their dragons, but they, act aloof with.
I will be honest with you, I'm fuzzy on Iron Flame
because we haven't read Iron Flame again. So once we do, maybe I'll be looking for that. But so then, if that's the case,
that's
a possibility.
That I've heard. You had the other one about like deities and God and the bigger magic system. So that wouldn't have to do with any memories or things like that. The theory is that Violet's dad or Violet is somehow like demigod or demigoddess related to like being a kid or offspring somehow of the, oh my gosh, Malik. But what's the god? He's god of what? Death? Oh, yeah. So somehow would have some type of powers related to that, and that would tie into then seeing someone that had passed away. And then another one being just, it's in her mind. She's hallucinating.
The
surface level, what we already thought.
Right. The only other, and I've seen a theory out there that goes along with that, or at least more, not a new theory, evidence that goes with that theory would be the scene right before or during in chapter 19 where Violet's just having a dream, but she's like talking with her dad.
Yeah.
But the dream is kind of weird because the dad, Violet's dad, is like, hey, remember that you need to do this. Be careful who you trust. Remember, when you read a story, you need to know who's telling it and why. It's a very weird like dream. Yeah. It's almost like a vision.
Yeah.
So that would kind of go like Violet's dad's dead. Maybe that is part of Violet's second
or
signet
kind of it's
sort of
set
deal.
up like he actually told her that, and it's just a very conveniently placed memory.
Right.
We don't know.
We don't know, but it could be.
If
it
that's
could be
confirmed
something like that
he actually said that. But yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no other like vision type things. So you were thinking somehow Liam appearing when she's in the torture thing
something
is
like
related
that
to Tairn reading her memory.
Or
but I don't think it's I don't
now that I'm thinking through it now,
using the term Tairn reading her memory is accurate because it's almost as though it's also his memory because of the bond.
But remember
you see what I'm saying?
But when Tairn first bonds Violet,
right?
He's talking about like, hey, don't put a dagger in my arm like you did up the gauntlet because and Violet's like, how do you know that? You weren't around here. And Tairn is like, I've seen your memories.
Well, so he's Xaden knew she did that, told Sigale told Tairn.
But that's not seeing her memories. For Tairn to specifically say, I've seen your memories.
So is it
and for him to go along and the famous Tairn quote, I know exactly who and what you are.
Yeah.
I think that could be like, yeah, I've seen your memories down when you were a baby. I know who you come from or what you come from.
In that theory, you're thinking it's like once the dragon and the rider bond, it's like
I've seen your whole life.
Their whole life is like downloaded into the dragon, kind of.
Could be. I think so.
Interesting.
Or maybe just Tairn because that's his power.
That's his special power.
Which also means, who was his previous writer? It was Naolin, which means he would have seen all of Naolin's past too, and maybe there is secrets in there of like who Naolin is, where he came from, where his allegiance lies, like all that sort of deal.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's the story.
I think I answered one question and I came up with like 20
Yeah,
more.
we came up with 20 more questions. That's always the way with our like far-reaching, unhinged
Very
theories.
far-reaching, yes, for sure. Do you have anything for Iron Flame?
I don't.
Okay. The only other additional thing that I wrote down was just kind of more of the contrast between Xaden and Dain of how when we learn in Iron Flame that Xaden had trouble kind of controlling his second signet with being able to read intentions, being intensic and that sort of thing. But that spoke to Violet because in that chapter of Iron Flame, when it's revealed, Violet kind of breaks it down. Violet's like, I know you have a second signet, so what is it? And Violet kind of breaks it down for the audience when she's like mentally thinking and thinking out loud. Like, okay, you are this person. You always kind of need to be in control. You need to know what's going on and where, and like, and she's like, oh, and she kind of figures it out that, oh, you're an intrinsic. And then Xaden kind of quickly clarifies. He's like, I can only see intentions of being an intrinsic. But regardless, that is very similar in my mind of how I, was going at with Dain at his core, that Dain needs to be in control. He needs to know things, but then so does Xaden, but they are still very polar opposites of how they get information. Xaden's not, forcefully demanding information from Violet.
Right.
It's
not it's almost like respectful. Like it's a respectful reading of your mind, like I'm not going to get the full info. I'm just going to get the key intention that I need. Very gentlemanly.
Yes or no?
Like good guy, bad guy. Okay. Moving on. In like a respectful way.
Going to kill me? No, we're good.
And he will he tries really hard to control his mind reading.
Yes.
Where he doesn't want to read people just because he can in an abuse of power way, where Dain is literally coming at her with his hands up, give me your memories, no say about it, very intrusive and assaulting almost to her in a non-gentlemanly way, no morals.
Pretty rude, borderline not okay.
Yeah, not okay.
Yeah, very, very. He only does it for safety, perseverance, and for
perseverance.
Not perseverance, self-preservation.
Okay.
And to keep the secrets.
Yeah.
That are I guess good secrets, to keep other people safe too.
Right.
Brennan and
it's a moral compass.
And that sort of people. Right. So there is that massive contrast with the also massive similarities, which I think speaks to great character development by Rebecca, that there can be a lot of similarities between two very polar opposite people.
Yeah.
We see that in a bunch of other things too. We see that very similarly in, Harry Potter, where Harry Potter and Voldemort are very much
have a lot of similarities,
but
you choose to be good or evil.
Right, you choose to be good or evil. And this is very much like that as well. So I appreciate the literature character creation of a lot of similarities, but can be very, very, very different as well.
Where it makes sense, where Violet might have had an attraction to both of them because of those similarities and why they work well with Violet because of them. But then really they start to show their true colors.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So, but that is all I have for Iron Flame context for chapter 20. We'll be moving on to chapter 21 next time, but we want to do a special episode specifically about a Rebecca sighting and all the stuff that's coming, but that will be a separate episode.
Yeah, still up tomorrow though. So same day, right after this episode. Stay tuned. True. What time is it? But we gotta do it time. Okay, here's the thing. I come up with babe, we need to do this TikTok. It's a trend. We need to talk about this thing, Rebecca. It's timely. If we don't record it now, it's gonna be too late. Okay. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
So
so we're gonna cut this episode.
Yeah. Short. We'll cut here. Stay tuned and keep listening for the next episode right after this bonus episode about Rebecca's sighting.
All the things.
And whatever announcement is coming.
Yes.
Tomorrow.
All right. Yeah? Okay. Thank you, everybody. Join us on that episode and for the episode of chapter 21 soon to come. But for now, that's it. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye-bye.